The night before the raid, ADX Florence felt like it always did, cold, airless, and silent in a way that didn't feel natural. Even the mountains surrounding the prison stood like stone witnesses, watching a place built not for punishment, but for erasure. Men sent to ADX didn't just serve time. They disappeared into cement, metal, and routine. And Sean Diddy Combs was no exception. After the failed South Shaft extraction, after the emergency sentencing, after the transfer from New York to Colorado, he had become what the prison classified him as a Category Black, an inmate under such scrutiny that even the air he breathed was monitored. But at 4 o'clock a.m. on February 14th, something shifted. A red beacon flashed on the control panel in the ADX Operations Center. A rotation supervisor, one who had never even spoken Diddy's name aloud, stood up, swiped his ID card, and initiated Protocol Vulture, the highest level randomized cell raid the system allowed. Within seconds, alarms pulsed silently through guard earpieces. Boots echoed down the narrow concrete hallway of F Unit, the isolation block where inmates lived behind steel doors thicker than bunker walls. The officers moved with precision, their faces blank behind black helmets. They weren't expecting trouble. They weren't expecting anything. Before we move on, I need to be completely honest with you. Every time I check the stats, my heart drops, because almost 99% of you watch these videos, but never subscribe. Your one click truly makes a huge difference. It pushes stories like this into the spotlight so more people can see what's really happening. So please take a moment to subscribe. It means more than you know. And don't forget to tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing your locations. It reminds me that no matter how far apart we are, these stories still connect us. Diddy had been compliant for weeks, but the warden wanted reassurance. When they reached his cell, the lead officer tapped the steel door. Combs, step back from the entrance. Inside, Diddy stirred, still half asleep on the thin concrete bed. He muttered something, stood slowly, squinting as guards flooded in with flashlights sweeping across every surface. This was routine, he told himself. They'd find nothing. They always found nothing. But today was different. An officer climbed onto a small platform and shined his light into the vent above the desk. For a moment, he saw only dust and steel. Then his beam caught a faint reflection. Like a sliver of glass, he narrowed his eyes. There's something in here. The room tensed. He reached in. His glove brushed metal. When he pulled it out, every guard froze. A SIM card device, ultra-thin, matte black, no brand markings. The kind used for one purpose only, receiving encrypted communications without triggering detection systems. Warden needs to see this, the officer whispered. Diddy's heart skipped. What is that? I don't know what that is. Quiet, another guard snapped. They tore into the vent, then the walls, then the bedding. Every officer now moved with a different kind of urgency, as if they'd stumbled onto something much bigger than contraband. Behind the toilet panel, they found a micro SD card wrapped tightly in electrical tape. In the seam beneath his mattress, they found a folded shard of metallic foil etched with sequences of numbers. Inside the light fixture above his bed, they recovered a thin antenna fragment, snapped at the midpoint. The lead guard turned toward the others, voice low but shaking. This isn't inmate contraband. This is covert hardware. Everything changed. Diddy stepped back against the wall, confusion twisting into panic. That's not mine. Listen, I don't know who. But no one listened. An officer radioed. Control, confirm, F unit lockdown. Repeat, full lockdown. We have high-grade tech in cell 14. Klaxons pulsed through the unit. Metal shutters slammed down. Automatic barriers engaged. Lights flickered to red. Officers pushed Diddy to his knees as the warden sprinted down the corridor in slippers and a half-buttoned shirt, eyes wide, face white. What the hell are we looking at? The guard held up the SIM device. Sir, this shouldn't exist inside a Supermax. In the control center, the FBI alert triggered automatically. Agents were patched in from Denver within minutes. No one shouted. No one panicked. The silence itself said everything. This wasn't just a violation. This was infiltration. By 5 a.m., the prison had been sealed. By 5:10 a.m., a forensic team was inside the cell analyzing every surface. By 5:30 a.m., federal officials were drafting an internal report that would later leak and set the world on fire. And at 6:02 a.m., a single line broke across national news. Breaking: Diddy caught in new contraband scandal inside ADX, federal investigation underway. Screens lit up in New York, LA, London, Dubai. Podcasts went live. TikTok erupted. Twitter detonated in real time. How does contraband reach ADX? Is Diddy involved in something bigger? Was this planted? What network is behind him? Inside the concrete belly of ADX, Diddy stared at the floor as guards taped off his cell. His chest rose and fell rapidly. He looked smaller than he ever had, crushed between the system that owned him and shadows he didn't dare name. For the first time since the escape plot, he whispered something almost no one caught. "They're still here. They're still watching me." Whether he meant the government or the network that once protected him, no one could tell. But the truth was clear. This wasn't a routine shakedown gone wrong. This was the beginning of something far darker. Something that would soon send Diddy's sentence skyrocketing to 75 years. By the time the sun rose over the Rockies, ADX Florence was already in full crisis mode. The world's most secure prison, the place designed to crush the wills of terrorists, cartel lieutenants, espionage operatives, was now treating Diddy's cell like a national security crime scene. No voices, no whispers, just the steady hum of machinery and the sharp click of forensic cameras capturing every inch of the concrete room where the impossible had happened. The SIM device, the micro SD card, the antenna fragment. Nothing added up. Nothing made sense. Not here, not in the place where every metal screw, every food tray, every item entering or exiting went through multiple layers of scanning. Even mail was photocopied, sanitized, and inspected before an inmate ever saw it. Yet somehow, someone had slipped ultra-high-grade encrypted hardware into Diddy's hands. The warden stood in the observation room, face gray, hands gripping the red railing so tightly the veins bulged. "This is not inmate-level contraband," he said quietly. "This is tactical intelligence hardware." One of the FBI agents nodded. "This device isn't for communication," he said. "It's for coordination." "Coordination with who?" the warden demanded. The agent didn't answer. A forensic analyst cracked open the micro SD card with surgical precision. The card looked unremarkable, the kind a teenager might use for photos. But the moment they slotted it into the secure terminal, the screen flooded with encrypted fragments. Lines of code, broken text, corrupted files. But one file survived intact, a text-only document titled Fallback. The room fell silent as the lines loaded crookedly across the screen. Cycle 7 active. Check-in required by Thursday. Silence equals failure. Confirm handlers in position. No deviation. The warden's voice tightened. "What the hell is Cycle 7? The agent replied softly, "That's what we're trying to figure out." Next came a set of numbers arranged in columns. Dozens of them. They looked random at first. Then an analyst gasped. "These are coordinates." "Coordinates to what?" The analyst zoomed in on the first set. It mapped to a location in the Bahamas. The next, an empty warehouse in Queens. The next, an abandoned estate in Atlanta. Every point matched a property once connected to individuals tied to Diddy's circle. Then they found something worse. A hidden note embedded in the code, nearly erased by the encryption. "If target breaks, eliminate." The room went still. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the agent said what everyone feared. "This isn't contraband. This is command infrastructure." The warden shook his head, which means someone on the outside is still running operations and using Diddy as a node. In the forensic lab, another technician examined the antenna fragment recovered from the light fixture. It wasn't homemade. It wasn't carved from scrap. It was a military-grade signal amplifier, the kind used by special operations teams, capable of bypassing certain types of electromagnetic shielding. "This shouldn't be anywhere near a prison," the technician said, "and it definitely shouldn't be inside ADX." The FBI ran Diddy's entire hallway again and again on camera rewind, looking for any moment, any handoff, any unusual visit. Every angle showed nothing, until one camera, camera 14 facing the maintenance access door, revealed the anomaly. At 2:13 a.m., exactly 2 hours before the raid, a man in a maintenance uniform walked down the hall. He carried a green toolbox. His ID badge flashed briefly as he approached the service panel beside Diddy's cell. He paused, crouched, then disappeared from view behind the structural column. He was only on camera for exactly 5 seconds. When the agents pulled up the staff database, the name on his badge, Caleb M. Doyle, triggered a red alert. He didn't exist. The ID number didn't exist. His badge wasn't in circulation. And the real maintenance staff had been asleep in their quarters 3 floors up. The infiltrator had bypassed ADX security, delivered the hardware, and vanished into the night. "This is impossible," the warden whispered. "No," the agent said. "This is organized, coordinated, and precise." As they cross-referenced the uniform, they found another clue. The patch on the sleeve belonged to a discontinued contractor. A company dissolved 4 years ago but rumored to have ties to private intelligence operations. Then another tech called out from the corner of the room, "We cracked part of the message logs." He turned the monitor toward the agents. On the screen were fragmented conversations, not complete but enough to freeze the blood in anyone who read them. Phase 7 confirmed. "He still has value. Wait for Thursday window. No communication means he's compromised. Terminate contact if needed." The agent turned to the warden. "Sir, this was not meant to help him escape." "Then what was it for?" the warden asked. The agent looked back at the screen, eyes narrowing. "It was meant to keep him in line." Inside the isolation room, Diddy hunched over the steel table, staring at his cuffed hands. He looked less like a celebrity and more like a man trapped between 2 prisons. The federal government on one side and a network he couldn't name on the other. He lifted his head when the door opened. "Am I being set up?" he asked, voice raw, cracking. "You think I brought that stuff in here? You think I'm controlling something? Look at me. I'm trying to survive." But the agent watching him didn't respond, because whether Diddy was lying or whether someone else was controlling him, one truth was unavoidable. Contraband didn't reach ADX Florence by accident. Someone wanted him monitored. Someone wanted him pressured. Someone wanted him afraid. And by noon, SDNY had already filed an emergency notice. The court will reconvene to address new evidence of criminal coordination involving inmate Combs. The storm was no longer inside ADX. It was about to explode across Manhattan. By the time Diddy was flown back to Manhattan under armed transport, New York City had turned into a pressure cooker. Barricades wrapped around the courthouse like steel armor. Snipers lined the rooftops. News vans crowded every block, drowning the streets in a symphony of rumbling generators, flashing lights, and frantic anchors shouting updates into microphones. This wasn't just another hearing. This was a spectacle, the third emergency proceeding tied to Diddy in less than a year. Inside the marble hall of SDNY, the atmosphere felt heavier than the storm clouds outside. Reporters whispered, attorneys paced with stiff shoulders. Federal marshals lined the walls in double formation. Even the court clerks moved with the kind of tense precision reserved only for the cases that end careers. At 12:31 p.m., the doors swung open. Diddy entered, shackled at the wrists and ankles, escorted by 6 U.S. Marshals in tactical gear. The room went silent. He looked hollow, thinner, cheeks sunken, eyes red from sleepless nights in ADX isolation. He didn't scan the room. He didn't look for cameras. He just stared straight ahead like a man walking toward a verdict he already knew he'd lose. Judge Aaron Subramanian stepped through the side door moments later. If anyone expected patience or sympathy, one look at his face erased the hope. His expression was cold, severe, as though this case had now crossed a threshold he could no longer tolerate. "Court is in session," he said. "Be seated." The prosecution rose immediately. They didn't waste a second. "Your Honor," the lead attorney said, "what happened in ADX Florence is not a matter of inmate misconduct. It is a matter of systemic compromise." He motioned to the technical team. The lights dimmed. The projector flickered to life. The first image appeared. The ultra-thin SIM device recovered from Diddy's vent. A ripple tore through the gallery. The second image, the micro SD card wrapped in tape. The third, the antenna fragment hidden in the light fixture. These items, the prosecutor continued, are not prison contraband. They are intelligence-grade devices used for encrypted signaling in the field. The defense attorney rose instantly. Your Honor, this is inflammatory and the chain of custody. Sit down, the judge snapped. The prosecutor stepped closer to the jury box. Your Honor, we have analyzed the contents of the micro SD card. We recovered fragments of message chains, encrypted code, and a document labeled fallback. The contents include, he clicked a remote. The courtroom screen displayed, Cycle 7, active check-in required by Thursday failure triggers. Consequence, no deviation. A reporter gasped. Someone in the gallery whispered, what does that even mean? The prosecutor continued, this is not a plan written by Mr. Combs. This is a directive given to him. Another slide, coordinates, dozens of them, mapping global locations. Atlanta, Nassau, Queens, Dubai, London, a warehouse tied to a former bad boy associate, a property owned by an offshore trust linked to Diddy's former security team. The judge leaned forward, hard. What is the implication here? He asked. The prosecutor didn't blink. The implication, Your Honor, is that Mr. Combs is still being used as a communication node by an external network, a network which infiltrated the most secure prison in the United States. The gallery erupted. Reporters scrambled, fingers smashing keyboards. Marshals tightened their grips on tasers as whispers spiraled out of control. The judge banged the gavel. Order! Order! Once the chaos subsided, the prosecutor played the real bombshell, the recovered audio clip. Static filled the speakers, then a voice, distorted but undeniably human. Thursday, Cycle 7, no delays. Then another voice, colder, lower, dripping with menace. If he doesn't comply, we end it. The room froze. Cassie, seated near the back, bowed her head slightly, as if fighting a memory she didn't want to relive. The defense attorney stood so quickly his chair scraped the floor. Your Honor, this is outrageous. There is no evidence that my client requested this contact. He's being manipulated. He's being forced. This is clearly a setup. The judge cut him off. And yet, the judge said, your client was in possession of these devices, inside ADX Florence, inside a facility specifically engineered to prevent the entry of such items. He turned toward Diddy. Mr. Combs, do you have anything you wish to say at this time? Diddy slowly raised his head. His voice cracked. Your Honor, I didn't ask for that device. I didn't ask for messages. I didn't want to be part of anything. Someone keeps coming after me. Someone keeps pulling me back in. I'm not trying to run anything. I'm just trying to survive. The judge remained unmoved. The prosecutor stepped forward again. Your Honor, we are not arguing whether Mr. Combs initiated this network contact. We are arguing that the very existence of such contact, inside ADX, proves he remains entangled in criminal operations, willingly or otherwise. That alone constitutes grounds for enhanced sentencing. The judge exhaled sharply. In light of what has been presented today, he said, the court will deliver its ruling. The gallery erupted again. Reporters scrambling, cameras rolling, voices clashing. But Diddy just closed his eyes. Because he knew what everyone else sensed. The judge had already made up his mind. And his new sentence wasn't going to be measured in years, but in decades. The courtroom had never felt so still. Even the hum of the overhead lights seemed to fade as Judge Aaron Subramanian straightened the papers in front of him. Outside the courthouse, the storm clouds had thickened over Manhattan, casting the room in a steel-gray shadow that made the moment feel inevitable, like a verdict that had been building not for days but for decades. Diddy sat motionless, wrists chained to his waist, ankles shackled, head bowed. His attorney leaned in close, whispering frantically, but the words bounced off him like wind against stone. He wasn't listening anymore. He wasn't arguing anymore. He looked like a man bracing for an avalanche. Judge Subramanian cleared his throat. This court, he began, voice echoing through the marble chamber, has now reviewed every piece of evidence submitted regarding the contraband discovered in Mr. Combs' ADX cell. He paused, allowing the tension to stretch so tight it felt like the air itself might snap. The presence of a military-grade SIM relay device, a coded micro SD card, and an antenna designed for covert encrypted communication is not simply a matter of inmate misconduct. It represents a breach of institutional security of the highest order. Reporters leaned forward. Some held their breath. Cameras whispered on their tripods. The judge continued, tone sharpening like a blade being drawn. This breach occurred in the most secure prison in the United States, a facility where entry of such items is deemed impossible. The fact that these items were found in Mr. Combs' cell, regardless of origin, indicates a continued engagement with external criminal operations. Diddy lifted his head slowly, eyes red, pleading. Your Honor, please, someone planted that on me. I'm being used. I don't even— Mr. Combs, the judge cut in, voice firm, unshaken. You will have the opportunity to speak it after I finish. The whispering in the gallery tightened into a collective knot. The court acknowledges the argument presented by the defense, that Mr. Combs may be the target of manipulation by unknown actors. However, even if true, that reality underscores the danger. It demonstrates that you remain at the center of an active, coordinated criminal network. Diddy's mouth fell open slightly. He blinked hard. His fingers twitched against the cuffs. The prosecutor glanced at the jury box with the expression of someone who already knew the ending. Judge Subramanian leaned forward now, elbows resting on the bench. This court has already imposed significant sentencing enhancements on Mr. Combs due to previous misconduct. But the scale of this latest breach, the nature of the devices, the encrypted directives, the clandestine infiltration of ADX Florence, demands further consequence. Silence. So total, it felt like the room had stopped breathing. It is the ruling of this court, the judge said, voice low and unwavering, that Sean Combs will receive an additional sentence of 35 years to be served consecutively with his existing terms. A wave of shock crashed across the gallery. 35 years, added on top of triple life, added on top of the South Shaft enhancement, added on top of the 40-year expansion from the escape inquiry. The total now, 75 years. Diddy shook his head slowly, disbelief spreading across his face like a crack in glass. No, Your Honor, you don't understand. Please, please. His voice broke, raw, desperate. I didn't bring anything in. I didn't talk to anyone. They keep trying to pull me into something. I don't want this. I don't want any of this. His attorney raised a hand. Your Honor, please, my client is clearly— Sit down, the judge snapped. The gavel thundered once, silencing every voice but his own. Furthermore, he continued, due to this event and the clear indication of external interference, Mr. Combs will be placed under maximum restriction protocol at ADX Florence. This includes reduction of privileges, enhanced monitoring, and limited external contact. Diddy's eyes widened with fear. Real, undeniable fear. No, Your Honor. Please don't send me deeper in. Please. He swallowed hard, voice trembling. They'll reach me again. They always reach me. I'm not safe there. But the judge's face did not change. This ruling is final. The gavel struck a second time. That sound, cold, sharp, merciless, echoed through the courtroom like a nail sealing a coffin. Reporters erupted. Cameras flashed. Crowds outside roared like a tidal wave breaking against the courthouse walls. Diddy leaned forward, forehead touching the cold metal of the shackles, shoulders shaking not with anger this time, but with something closer to collapse. As marshals surrounded him, lifting him to his feet, Judge Subramanian delivered one final line. Let this serve as a reminder. Power does not protect you from accountability, and silence does not shield you from consequence. Diddy's head dropped again. He wasn't shouting anymore. He wasn't fighting anymore. He was simply walking step by step toward a future history had already written for him, a future sealed behind concrete, steel, and 75 unbreakable years. The ride back to ADX Florence was nothing like the one that brought Diddy to New York. This time the convoy moved under far heavier security, 2 armored transports instead of 1, 4 SUVs instead of 2, a helicopter overhead, marshals strapped with tactical rifles, and a silence inside the reinforced cabin so suffocating it felt like the air itself had been vacuum sealed. Diddy sat shackled to the floor by wrists, waist, and ankles, staring at nothing. His eyes didn't blink much now. His voice didn't rise. Whatever was burning inside him during the hearing had turned into a cold, hollow vacancy. The kind of emptiness that appears when a person finally realizes their life is no longer measured in days, but in decades. 75 years. A number large enough to swallow a whole lifetime. But as the convoy sped through the dark Colorado highways, another truth gnawed at him deeper than the sentence. The network wasn't finished with him. The device, the SD card, the coded messages, they weren't meant to help him escape. They weren't meant to offer him power. They were meant to control him, to monitor him, to keep him compliant, to remind him, you are still ours. When the convoy arrived at ADX, the moon hung low over the desert like a pale witness. Marshals escorted Diddy out of the transport, his chains clinking in the frozen air. He didn't fight. He didn't speak. He moved like a shadow being escorted back to its box. Inside, the warden waited, flanked by 2 federal supervisors and 5 tactical guards. His expression wasn't angry. It was something worse. Afraid. "Mr. Combs," he said, voice tight, "effective immediately, you are being placed under emergency isolation protocol. No personal items, no communication privileges, no recreation, no direct contact, 24-hour monitoring." Diddy didn't look at him. He stared past the warden into the stark hallway fading into darkness. "They're going to come for me again," he whispered. The warden stiffened. "Who?" Diddy swallowed hard, his voice cracked. "I don't know the names. I don't know who they are anymore." But the warden already knew the answer. FBI leadership knew the answer. SDNY knew the answer. Because in the weeks leading up to the Contraband discovery, classified intelligence flagged a troubling pattern. 3 former associates of Diddy's private security teams had disappeared. 2 offshore bank accounts tied to shell corporations emptied out overnight. A warehouse in Queens, the same one tied to coordinates on the SD card, had been found abandoned, but filled with burned documents and smashed laptops. Someone was cleaning house. Someone was eliminating loose ends. And someone had tried to use Diddy, even inside ADX, as part of a chain reaction. What reaction? What plan? Cycle 7? Fallback? Thursday deadlines? None of it made sense yet. But the danger was real. Back in New York, the FBI task force renamed Operation South Shaft into something far more serious. Operation Phantom Line. Its target, the invisible network manipulating, infiltrating, and discarding anyone tied to their operations, including Diddy. Investigators worked through the night. They reconstructed more fragments from the SD card, handler compromised. Restructure asset pathways. Containment required. In the last, most chilling line, he is still necessary. Not useful, not valuable. Necessary. For what? No one knew. Meanwhile, inside his new hyper-restricted isolation cell, Diddy sat on the concrete bench, elbows on knees, face buried in his hands. The walls around him were thicker now, the doors heavier, the slit window narrower. Light flickered faintly overhead. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't pleading, he wasn't praying, he was remembering the parties, the handlers, the whispers, the offshore deals, the private security staff who had their own staff, the favors he never questioned, the people he thought worked for him but who may have been working for someone else all along. He once controlled an empire, but maybe the empire had always been controlling him. Hours later, as snow drifted against the razor wire outside, 2 figures stood in a dark warehouse outside Denver, the one tied to the drone signal from the night before Diddy's raid. A generator hummed softly. A screen glowed on a folding table. The first man spoke quietly. "He's locked down. Black protocol." The second man nodded. "Expected." The first hesitated. "They found the device." A long silence. Then the second man replied, voice cold. "Doesn't matter, he can't talk. Not without proof." "And if he breaks?" the first asked. The second man closed the laptop. Then we moved to the final directive. He walked away into the shadows, and the warehouse lights went out. Back in ADX, Diddy stared at the small barred window, breathing slow, shallow breaths. Somewhere in the darkness, the system wanted him contained. Somewhere else in the darkness, a network wanted him silent. And he was trapped between both, with 75 years ahead of him and no one left on his side. The documentary closes on a final chilling line. He thought prison was the end. But for the network that built him, it was only the beginning.